Welcome back to our fourth day reading, the Thursday reading. I got my another cat, so we have two in the video, so you guys get to see a little bit of the craziness at my house. Actually, this one right here was one of the ones that used to live at the school when she was a baby. So, not that any of you are super concerned about that, but just wanted to comment that I do know there are cats all around behind me. All right, so we are picking up in right at the end of chapter 1 of this book. There are 3 chapters. This is the end of chapter 1. We're going to get into pretty quickly, okay? So we've just had the director chased away by the bug. Not intentionally. Gregor didn't mean to scare him, but he did. Come on, sweetie. Sorry, guys. Oh, no. All right. Anyway, so Gregor is now in the den with his family, and the director's chased off. So the father grabs a cane and a newspaper and uses it to chase the bug back into the room for some reason. But that's his goal. Now, this father figure is meant to be Kafka's father 100%. The immediate reaction to violence and to trying to hurt him is key. I mean, Kafka was an abused child. He lived through a terribly abusive parent. That didn't just stop when he was a child. It continued into his adult years. So his dad was a horrible human being. And the dad in this is kind of supposed to be that same person. Now, there's kind of this interesting scene. Sorry. There's kind of this interesting scene where Gregor is being backed towards his room, which is really just not the way that this type of bug is designed to move. He says that if I could only have gotten the opportunity to turn myself around and go head first back in, I would have left willingly. But because the father is insisting on him moving at his speed and his way, he forces him through this door. And as he goes to the door, he hurts himself. He scrapes himself pretty bad. He hurts a couple of his legs. And it's just because he's not being allowed to do it his way. Now, again, if you're just reading this on your own and you don't really understand much about Kafka's life or what he was trying to do with this novel, you might look at that as a completely stupid scene, but it's really not. What we're seeing is this idea that Kafka as a person had his way of trying to live out his future. He wanted to be a writer, and his father was like, no, you're going to do it my way. You're going to become, you're going to be a businessman. And so he forces him down a path he didn't want to go and forces him at his speed, and it ends up causing him great harm. All right. I have pointed this out multiple times that I really believe that if Kafka hadn't died from tuberculosis, it wouldn't have been long before he would have ended up killing himself. And that would have been the end of it. So the tuberculosis was, it just was fortunate for him. That's the way it went. Otherwise, he'd have been forced to take his own life, more than likely. The guy just felt completely, as if his father didn't care about him, and he felt like he had no control over his life. So the bug imagery is perfect because bugs don't really have control over their life. So it really fits. So that ends chapter 1. Gregor's hurt himself. He's laying back in this room, and we get this sense of what's going to happen next. We get this somewhat tender scene of that evening. The sister comes and puts a bowl of milk with bread in it and slides it in the room. That's one of Gregor's favorite foods, and so she's trying. And it is a really sweet scene, and you can tell that probably Kafka, I think he had a sister, has a very good relationship with her, and there is that bit of love. He does have a little bit in his life, thank God. Sadly, though, and this kind of goes with it, this used to be one of his favorites, he can no longer even enjoy it because, this isn't what cockroaches eat, so he tastes it, and it disgusts him. So now he's starving too. And he can't even enjoy one of the small things he used to love. And again, this is one of those hallmarks of just when you find yourself in an unfulfilling life as an adult, not just career, but life in general. And you just no longer can enjoy things that you once did. This is depression. I mean, it's a form of that. Now, his is obviously because he's a different species now, but we're really trying to parallel this idea of depression, which causes you used to love watching football. Now you can't even enjoy that. You used to love reading books. You can't even enjoy that. It's one of the really sad parts of when someone reaches that level of their life because they really just have lost all interest in things. And Gregor is kind of in that place right now. So he goes back to thinking about his family here, and Kafka does a good job of bringing this up multiple times. Understand that when an author continuously brings up a concept, that this is something you're supposed to key in on, is this is a major point. So let me read this to you. It's from page, well, you don't have this with you. Let me just read it. He says, Gregor said to himself and felt great pride as he stared into the darkness before him, that he had been able to provide his parents and his sister with such a life and such a nice apartment. But what if terror now drove away all quiet, all prosperity, all contentment? Rather than surrender to such thoughts, Gregor preferred to move about, so he crawled back and forth in his room. So he's restless and can't sleep because he's worried about his family. He's worried that, they've been depending on his income, and now that he's not going to be able to do that, what's going to happen to them? And it's really nice that he's thinking about that. But it's also sad because think about the extra pressure that puts on him. Guys, there's nothing he did to cause himself to be put in this situation. There's nothing he can do to get out of it. And again, you can parallel that with today's world with this virus situation. And for the most part, most people who end up with this did not do anything on purpose to get it. Yes, you have people who were very stupid and did things they shouldn't have and ended up getting it. But, it's not his fault. A lot of these people who've lost their jobs right now, it's not their fault. I mean, they were hard workers and they've lost their jobs. And a sense of frustration and just impotence because you can't do anything. You're totally on your own at this point, and there's nothing you can do to make this stop. We can't fast forward the calendar. I'm making this video on April 4th, and we are supposed to be locked down in our houses until April 30th. I mean, there's so many people who they don't have the blessing I do that I can teach over the internet and still get paid. I mean, some people have nothing they can do. They can't go find another job. So that sense of futility is really what is hitting him and eating him alive, and it will. It really will. The next morning, his sister shows back up. She looks in there to see if he's eaten the food. She's getting a little braver, but of course, the repulsion's still there. She opens the door. She looks up. She's like, she slams the door. But then she opens it up because she realizes what she did, and she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. She realizes he didn't eat the food she put in there. And in my book, this actually is mid-paragraph where I stopped you, but on the material I sent you, it actually was the end of a paragraph. But she starts going through and looking for some other materials that he might prefer to eat. So she's really trying to help him. And that's one of the sweet things that happens in this. And one of the things that good writers realize is you can't have all negativity and depression. It just wears things down. It makes it really hard to read, and it just doesn't do what it needs to with the reader's emotions. By mixing in this scene, we get this sense that his mother and father and the director don't really care about him, but we get that he cares about them, and we also get that his sister cares about him. So you do get this little bit of a interaction that's going to be important with how this novel ends. Okay. All right. That ends your reading for Thursday. Again, these are very small chunks. I'm really trying to help you guys out with very limited work. I understand that there's a lot going on. I hope that you're using this time wisely to do things to help your parents and to help them stay sane in this crazy time period. I hope that you're not just using this selfishly. But in knowing you guys, you probably are being quite helpful. You're a good group of kids. So anyway, I'm going to come back with my very last video for this week. It'll be the final part of the reading for this. It'll put us about halfway through the second chapter, halfway through this very small novella.